right, well, welcome to the first back at the beach, I guess we could call it. Back to the beach. I'm really excited to be here. It's going to be a great series, great time. If you don't know what we're doing, well, it's I came up with this term, explore and experience, and I thought that's a great thing to think about, especially as believers. You know, sometimes exploring is really important as a believer, to really spend time and work out what God is doing. So that's what we're talking about. And the second part of that is experience. You know, what you experience as a Christian. I think lots of times we can get lost in that and not really look at that. So I'm starting this thing. It's a discussion, so you guys have to all be involved. It's okay if you don't say anything, but at the end of every little message, we're going to have a time to discuss. Yes, you, Steffi, you're going to discuss. Did you know that Steffi's been going to university doing religious studies, right? Is that the term? Awesome. So if you have any questions, if you think anything I say is wrong, just talk to her because she'll tell you. But every week I want to start by asking a question, okay? So from here on out, I'm going to ask you a question. Now, the thing is, you don't have to answer this question until later. That's the good thing. So, you know when you go to something and then at the end they say, so what do you guys think? Tell us what you think. You're like, you're not quite ready? So I'm going to give you the question now, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about anyway. So here's the question. Can God be known? Can he be known intimately? Literally, like really, really know him? If yes, share how this happens in your life. You know, think about past moments and situations where you really saw God intimately and he spoke with you. If no, it's okay. If you answer that question no, that's all right. Share how this makes you feel. Like maybe there are times where you didn't feel, maybe you called out to God and nothing happened. And why maybe you think this is the case, why you feel God didn't speak to you. So think about that. No one has to answer that right now. You don't have to answer it ever. But if you want to at the end, you want to discuss it, this will be great. So hopefully it'll be a good discussion. But so the talk tonight is pretty much that. Can God be known intimately, literally? As a matter of fact, I would probably say this whole series is about that. We're going to look at different things. So if you're a Christ follower, you believe in Jesus, you would probably say, yes, of course, I have a relationship with God, right? And if you're an atheist, meaning you don't believe in God, well, of course, God doesn't speak to me because I don't believe in God, right? But the thing that these two ways of thinking what they have in common is one thing, and that is faith, believe it or not. The Christian has faith that they believe that there is a God. He is unseen at the moment, and I have faith in that. And for the atheist, he has faith to believe that everything around him is by chance, it's just by math. It's mathematical, it is what it is. That's all there is. When you die, there's nothing else. That takes a lot of faith too. Both of those take faith. Let's see, hold on a second. So one has faith that all we see and experience is created. The other one has faith that all we see is just by chance. So the question is, can we actually peek behind the curtain, the proverbial curtain? You remember in The Wizard of Oz, I don't know, maybe that's before a lot of your times, but I always remember that one scene where where Dorothy actually finds the curtain and she sneaks up behind and she actually sees the great and powerful Wizard of Oz, who's just a guy on a microphone, you know, and I'm like, and it was really like, what? That's all you are? Can we look behind the proverbial curtain and see what things are made of, what this all means, why we are here? I don't know if you guys ever think that way. I don't know. That's stuff that all of us, it must hit us sooner or later. You know, and if you follow Jesus, you're dedicated to him. You've given your life to him. You believe in eternity. Okay, you believe in these things. I've got a question for you. How prepared are you to go into this new ultimate reality? It got me thinking. I just came back from a trip to the East Coast, and I asked God before I went, Lord, I really want you to speak to me. And one of the things that really stuck out for me is he really wanted to know me intimately. I guess that's why we're here. That's why I'm doing this message. But I really thought to myself, man, I am not ready. You know, if I face the Lord and everything, I just want to I want to be there already. Do you get what I mean? Sometimes we can be in this life and we get so caught up in everything that goes on around us. our concept and our belief in God is just so minimal. It's basically, how should I say? It's basically what we see. It's not really what is really there. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not talking weird or anything, but I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of who God is and what it is. So what is this new dimension, this place where there's no such thing as time? Imagine that for a little bit. Think about music without time. Music is all about time, and now there's no time? So what's the music going to be like? Think about traveling. Think about surfing. I don't even know if there's going to be surfing in heaven, but surfing is a timing thing as well, and there's no time there. So what the heck is that going to be like? These are things that go in my mind. Maybe I'm weird. But I want to be prepared. Can we get a glimpse of eternity and of God and of his son, Jesus Christ? So the Bible has numerous times and moments where God and his kingdom and that dimension collide with our everyday, our everyday world, right? And if you happen to be there in that spot, imagine what that would have been. You would have been affected forever, changed forever. Ask the disciples, a lot of them went through that. So over the next few weeks, I actually want to go back and also visit some of these situations. I think next week we'll have a look at Moses, because his life is pretty incredible. And really, it's the first time in the Bible where we really see God tell somebody, this is what my name is. Is that right? Am I doing okay? Okay, see, I'm getting the approval. What my name is. Moses says, who should I tell the Egyptians that sent me? And then, of course, God answers back, tell him I am sent you. It's like, what? What is that? But there's some beautiful stuff in there. So we'll look at that next week. But this week I'm thinking, you can't go past Adam and Eve, right? Imagine God calls Adam. He says, hey, Adam, where are you? And this happened after what? Adam made the worst choice ever. He made a terrible mistake. They were hiding from God. Think about this. God, Adam, and Eve hung out together. They strolled around the Garden of Eden, talking, having a friendship. That is just incredible. I want that. That's what really we need to have, right? And that's what Adam and Eve had, but of course they made a terrible decision. It must have been an incredible time. I don't know how long. We don't know how long they were there in the Garden of Eden, but to be able to walk side by side with God, that's what they did. And now Adam and Eve, they're in this new reality. It's a fallen planet. How much would have that affected them to no longer be in the presence of God? So I think it's very fitting here. We're sitting on this beach. It's beautiful. We're watching the sunset. It's amazing, isn't it? It's the best place to be. It's great. I mean, we need to take as much advantage of this as possible. That's why we're here, right? We're doing this as much as we can. And anytime, when I don't know about you guys, but when I get overwhelmed or too busy, and, it's a bit too much, I like coming to the beach. But I like coming at sunset. There's something about the day turning into night. There's that period. I mean, if you're into film and photography, it's called the golden hour, and it's a special time. The colors are so amazing. It's just beautiful. And there's a special moment in that. And also, in the morning at sunrise, that time, again, there's a golden hour there as well. There's something special about that. And it just reminds me of how small we are. But if we stop there and we love this beautiful scenery so much and we start worshiping the scenery, well, we're missing the point. We're not going beyond the curtain. We're just like, this is the curtain. This is not everything, right? And I want to be clear, as we take this journey, we're not here to worship creation. Creation is great. I love creation, but it's not where it ends. There's something far deeper behind all of creation, and that is, of course, the Creator. So as we explore and experience, we're going to go as far as we can and find out more about the Creator. What I believe this is, what we're seeing right here is really an outpouring of God's love. He being the Creator, just blessing us with this. Romans chapter 1, verse 19 through 20, it says that which is known about God is evident within them in their inner consciousness, speaking about us, mankind. For God made it evident to them. For ever since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through his workmanship. all his creation, the wonderful things that he has made, so that they who fail to believe and trust in him are without excuse and without defense. Paul's writing here, hey, all you have to do is look around you. You know that there's a creator. And it's so true, isn't it? We have to realize that there is a creator. And Paul says we're without excuse. The other thing I want to stress is what Jesus himself proclaimed, and that is this. He said that I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father, speaking of God, except through me, through him, Jesus. That's in John chapter 14. So during our time here, we're not going to try and reconcile other beliefs and blend them with who Jesus is or what Jesus is or anything like that. I'm taking the word of God as it is. Jesus claimed that he is the Son of God, and there's no other way through him. You know, the Bible is clear that, and I love this, don't get caught up in this, but it says, I got this from Greg Laurie. He said, all roads lead to God. Most of the time we would say as a believer, no, that's not true. But all roads do lead to God, whether you're an atheist, a Buddhist, a Muslim, etc. Because you will face God. Because there's a scripture that says every knee will bow before God. So yes, no matter what you believe in, one day you're going to face God and your knee will bow. But only Jesus leads to eternity and an eternal relationship in heaven with God. That's the difference. That's what Jesus is saying. He says, no one comes to the Father except through me. You can't have a relationship with God except through Jesus. That's what it's all about. So I do believe that if you put your due diligence in seeking God, he can't be found, because it says in the Bible, he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. I know in my life personally, when I gone through stuff, hey, you know, it was like, God, I understand. Jesus, I want to know you. So I know the challenge is I got to diligently seek you. So I'm going to put my effort in. I'm going to go for it. But I also want you, Jesus, to speak to me. So that was the challenge I had. So if you're a real Jesus, I want you to reveal yourself to me. I'll do my part. I'll be diligent. I'm going to learn as much as I can about you, but you need to meet me. And sure enough, I went through the Gospel of John. Towards the end of the Gospel, I got hammered by the Lord. Jesus showed up and he revealed to me who he is, his character, and all that stuff. And from then I became a believer. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, he says, we look not for the things that are seen, but for the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient. They're just passing through. But the unseen things are eternal. So that's interesting, right? Whoa, that's one of those scriptures that, like, whoa, that's pretty trippy. So we don't need to worry about the things that are seen, because guess what? It's just going to pass. What does that do to you? It's like, whoa, you really? I mean, right now, everything we think is right here, but that's transient. That's not it. The things that are unseen are eternal. You know, throughout history, people accepted without question the reality of these two worlds, the things that are seen, the things that are unseen. But for the past couple of centuries, that's kind of changed because of science. And supposedly science has enlightened us, and we realize, well, no, wait a minute, a lot of these things make sense scientifically. It's more common today to think what you see is what you get, that's all there is. In fact, there's a historian, his name was Henry Adams, in around 1900. He believed that the invention of the electric motor had replaced the virgin birth. That was his comment. So that's kind of a weird comment. The electric motor has replaced the virgin birth. Okay, but bear with me, it's interesting. Speed up, almost a century later. Larry King, I don't know if you know who Larry King is, but he did a lot of interviews with people. He interviewed all the celebrities and whatnot. Somebody asked him, if you could interview anybody in history, who would it be? And he said, Jesus Christ. I would love to interview him. And they said, well, what's the question you would ask him? I would ask him, was he really born of a virgin? Again, the virgin again shows up. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So why does Henry Adams and Larry King put so much weight in the virgin birth? It's because it's a huge concept, and that everything hinges on it. It's a huge moment in history, and here's what it is. The virgin birth, if the virgin birth is true, then this means that unseen world has collided with the seen world. That means that these two dimensions have actually touched, right? It's like, whoa, that's interesting, you know, and if that's really true, that changes everything. So that's why that's such an important point. William James, he was a clinical psychologist, and he studied people of faith and noticed that they had a common belief in the unseen spiritual world. The visible world draws its significance from the invisible world. In other words, the seen world, the world we see, matters only because of the invisible. People who have a faith, and I can relate to that because I have a faith in God, what's happening here is only significant because of what's going to happen in the future for me. Do you get what I mean? So he was studying this and he realized this. And this William James noticed people of faith believed this is a dysfunctional world and believe the cure is to connect to the unseen world, which is the true end of all things. So William James, he was an agnostic. I don't know if you know what an agnostic is. An agnostic is somebody who believes, yeah, there's a God, there's some sort of creator, but it's too hard to work out. So you kind of give up. So he says you can't ever really understand who God is. That's how he started. But as he spent his life interviewing these types of people, and he witnessed that these people had produced actual transforming effects in their personalities. Think about it. If you're a believer, you're walking with Christ, there are changes that are happening in your life. At least there should be. God is really speaking to you through the Word of God. And so William James saw this, and he says, therefore, he summed up after a lifetime of study that God is real. And the reason why he felt God is real is because he produced real effects. People were changing. People's lives were changing. And it wasn't even the supernatural he was talking about. He was just talking about attitude and character. He saw that in these people who were people of faith. So where is science today? Have they proved God as non-existent? You would think so, if you read the newspapers and whatnot. But amazingly, physicists are diving deeper and deeper into math, and they're discovering new dimensions. Quantum physics is discovering multiple dimensions. They're saying, they started off with, there's 10. Well, no, wait a minute, there's 11. Well, maybe there's 26 dimensions. Like, what the heck? 26 dimensions. And they're still working this out. So what's the outcome? Well, there is so much evidence that there is an unseen parallel dimension and that it influences our seen world in ways we cannot detect. We do know that, if you think about matter, everything that you see, it's made out of atoms, right? And we know that atoms, if you break down an atom, we find out that there's protons, neutrons, electrons. They're all flying around like a little orbit, right? But did you know that there's space between all that? And did you realize, if you study it, the space between the protons and neutrons and electrons flying around and the nucleus, there's actually more space there than there is these items that make up our world, make up our seen world. The space between, so there's enough space there for an entire completely different dimension. So we're sitting here right now, and what we see feels pretty solid, the sand and everything. We're sitting down, the water, all that. But guess what? There's enough space around us that there could be a completely different dimension going on right through us. Sometimes you think, there could be a freight train flying through here. We wouldn't know it. It's a different dimension. But that's how incredible it is. So thanks for science, because we're beginning to understand that there are other dimensions. So this dimension that we don't see is actually larger than the dimension that we live in. That's you can see that just by the space within an atom, that there's actually more. It's larger. It's a larger dimension, and it's moving right through us. So when Paul says we look not at the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen, for the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Well, then it begins to make sense. It's like, whoa, okay. So we're beginning to realize this is not everything. As a matter of fact, it's fleeting. It's going to go away. And the Bible says that. So with that in mind, here's the question again. So I don't know if you guys want to talk, but I hope you do. Can God be known? Can he be known intimately, literally? What's your experience? You guys ever had that experience? Share how this happens in your life. Feel free to do that. If you feel like, no, I've never had that, then say that too. And maybe you know why. Maybe there's a reason why. Go ahead and share that too. Why do you think it's the case? Does anybody want to share anything? Don't be afraid. I did the hard part, talking, so. Anybody? Anybody have a relationship with God where you literally felt God was there? Okay, how? How does it happen,
So
Christoph?
when you're alone to him, and you seek him alone, and you see his face. When you're away from everybody, and then you just call out to him, and you just say, "I come here," and you gotta come with a different way of thinking. We always try and come in a certain way and expect like verbal things, but God moves in such ways that your heart even feels touched, and you can't explain it. Sometimes the peace just hits you. You're praying about something, or you're anxious, or you're frustrated, and then you just talk to him, and the next thing you just feel. I always know that when the Holy Spirit's really moving through me, like I can be in like the warmest room, and then I just have like goosebumps go from my spine down to my, like I always feel it like every time, even through worship, like it happens a lot. Where then I just know that's like the physical little things that are, but just he's there. It's like your best friend next to your side, and he's holding you, and he's like, okay, but you were pretty dumb there. Well, you should like go and say sorry or something, Or I just feel every day that when you wake up, he's just looking at you, and he's like, I love you, let's go. And
Yeah.
it's like so many times we're so sin conscious, we're not sonship, we're more about, oh, we better not try and sin today, rather than just trying to focus on Jesus and keeping our eyes on him.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've noticed. As soon as you start focusing on Jesus, that's where he really moves your heart, and then you start changing things, and it's things that you have to fight with that every day, because your pride wants to come and tell you that, oh, well, why do you have to do this, or why do you do that? Then you're just like, well, didn't he do all of that for us?
Amen.
That's my personal experience with him.
Cool.
We get deeper and deeper, but
Anybody else? Also, Christoph, this is for the mic, for the recording, shared that I'll sum it up, but he said that when he's alone and he has to get away from things and he gets totally focused. Is that right? And that's when...
I just like to go alone to him, because that's where I know that he wants you to be alone with him. That's how you're intimate. You spend time alone with somebody. That's the way it works.
Yeah, so it's like being alone in a relationship and you're intimate, and that's when he begins to speak to you. Cool.
Just honest conversation with your best friend.
Yeah.
I think the coolest thing about it, just like it's written, it says, he will bless those who diligently seek him.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing is when you really focus your attention on him,
Yeah.
and you try to, like, it's hard to understand, at least for me, it used to be hard to understand that term of surrender. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I like my life's awesome. And like, that's because it's blessed. Surrender is just knowing that there's much more unseen than there is seen.
Yeah.
And to put your trust in his guidance. And when you seek that, from the smallest things to the biggest things, most of us tend to think of God as such a, like, massive thing that I can only ask him for a massive change and not something small, but he changes every little thing. That's what's so massive about it.
Anybody else? You're nodding your head a lot. Come on. Oh, go ahead.
It says in the Bible that God knit us together in our mother's womb, and he knows our first day and our last day, so he has to be intimately involved in our lives, and he knows
That's cool.
when we start and when we're going to pass.
Yeah.
But my grandma, she was a missionary and a believer, a really like godly woman. She just passed on recently, but she, out in Micronesia, would experience, she had stories of like there's a lot of spiritual warfare and some like really supernatural stuff that she could tell you, but she personally says that she finds God's voice, not like an audible voice, but from her spirit, from the spirit living in her when she reads the Bible. She's had some really interesting insights that she got just from reading scripture.
Yeah.
God speaking to her through the Bible,
That's awesome.
I'll say something.
Okay.
I think, like the way I've always found God talking to me is
Yeah.
he talks to me in my hardest times, but also in my happiest times. I always feel that he's always doing his best to connect with us. It's like a line, and like sometimes we close the door thinking he's not talking, but he's always constantly trying to direct us into this path and keep us on it, because it's like the moment we let go or close the door, it's like when we stray off. It's like last night for me, it was like I had to get alone, like away from everyone, and just to like calm my brain down and hear God. But it was like at the same time, I was praying for peace, but I wasn't trying to grab on to peace because I was too soaked up into what was going through. And so God told me, reach out to a friend, have that friend pray for you. And then I'm sitting in Surfing the Nations for their Surface Church program. and I'm stressing out. I'm like, I can't hear anything. I'm just sitting there, not talking to anyone. And then God's like, hello, hello. I'm talking to you. Open your ears. And I finally open, I listen, and the song they're playing is Peace, Peace, unto you peace. And I'm just like, you know what, God, I'm sorry. Like the whole time you had the answers for what I'm going through. But it took me to go all the way up this hill, away from my house, away from everything, for my friends to pray for me to open the door and say, I'm listening to you. But then there's also times where I'm in my happiest times and I'm just like, I think my life is perfect. I think I'm on the path. And then God will be like, hey, and I'll laugh. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I see how far I am. I'm going back to your path. And it's just like, it's very important to know that the communication line that God has open is never closed from his end. It's usually us closing it on our end. And that's the mistake that like a lot of young people make these days, especially nowadays we're searching for a world that doesn't judge us, a world that says it's okay and just pampers us. We only want the grace, but we don't want the discipline. And God's like, I have both, and you're gonna learn one way or other. And so usually when we don't listen to his love, he's gotta spank us like a parent has to. And so I've been through so many incidents in my life, and I know each one was God spanking me in a loving way, and that's why I'm still breathing. And if it wasn't him, I wouldn't be breathing. And so I think it's very important when I'm going through stuff is to stop and pray. Sometimes if you have to do it alone and you're by yourself, do it alone. But if you have people around you who love you, who you call family and friends, it's an army that can pray for you, and their prayers are even more stronger with you. And that's what I have to say.
That's great. I love that. You know, it's true. God is always trying to communicate with you. That's something that's really, really good. And, you know, you forget that. That's great. Anybody else? Steffi, you good?
I'm good.
Anybody else? Oh, that was,
I'll just
oh,
say-
yeah.
Well, since we've moved here, because we left all of our comforts and came here and our very predictable but safe life, and came here, whenever I would drive towards Haleiwa and see the mountains, and with the cloud over the top, for me it just spoke the word to me of God's presence, like Mount Sinai with the Israelites, and how he was a cloud during the day, but fire at night. And it's almost like even when things felt really dark and unpredictable and I felt insecure and I had no security, it was like God just showing me himself saying, I'm here, just like I was for the Israelites, I'm here. So it's like just those little, because he speaks often to me through pictures. I always get like pictures in my head and not like, I know audible voice, but more like pictures and sometimes a voice inside, like sounds like my own voice, but it's too clever. I couldn't have come up with that myself. But of course you test every word that is given you, but yeah, just things like that. He speaks to me through his creation.
That's awesome.
I have a little thought too.
Okay.
Just kind of going back onto like what Spirit said, like the door is never closed on his end, it's usually closed on our end. And I'm working on that actually right now. Like just like being able to like have time alone with him and like actually listen and just like be in his presence and not me just talking, you know, because a lot of times we're like, Lord, this is going on and help me with this and this and this and this and this, and like that's great, but we don't actually spend time just like, all right, Lord, I'm just going to be in your presence and I'm going to listen to you and like just expect to hear him speak to you because he is speaking to you always. And like, this one time I was just like going through like all this junk and I was babysitting, and these two little kids were just like such brats, okay? And this one day I went in, yeah, that was me being nice too. But yeah, this one day I went in and I was just like, I literally was like, Lord, I cannot do this today. Like I literally, just please, just help me. And I went in, and those kids were the most well-behaved they've ever been, ever when I babysat them. And I sat on the couch, and the little girl, who was even worse than the boy, starts playing with my hair, and I just heard in my head, I love you, and and I just like, and I knew it was God, like just like encouraging me and like helping those kids to behave that day. So
That's awesome.
He's always speaking to us. But, yeah.
Great. Well, let's spend some time worshiping the Lord, and then we can watch the sunset. We got a bit of time.